friends, welcome back. Today we are doing a game review, and this one was a doozy, y'all. It was me playing Maliss versus my friend Lance playing Enneacraft. And when I tell you the amount of effort it took to look up and understand what the Enneacraft cards did, my brain hurts. So this is definitely a good learning game. We make a lot of mistakes. I tried to include the chain in it, and yeah, follow along to figure out how we did playing this. It was a 50-minute singular game. Yeah, let's get into it. Okay, so before we even get into this, I have barely played pendulums. I tried Sulfachord Yummy when it was like allegedly a thing. But I don't really understand pendulums too much, so this was quite the learning experience for me. So my friend Lance is going to activate Orgia in hand. Okay, this card's not once per turn, so I immediately realized this was about to be broken. So it says, okay, so the thing with pendulums is the top part is going to be the like pendulum, like when it's in the pendulum zone effect, and then the bottom part is when it's treated as a machine. It says you can reveal this card in your hand. That's like the activation requirement. Special summon one monster from your hand in face down defense position. You cannot special summon the turn you activate this effect except in face down defense position. So notice how there's no once per turn. So he's revealing and he is going to special summon in face down defense. And I'm like, yep, so unknown. He's going to then set it into the pendulum zone and then activate the effect. Let me back it up. So if you notice so he sets it in the pendulum zone and then he activates the pendulum effect. When pendulum zone monsters are being activated and used, they are treated as spell cards, which made hand trapping this type of stuff very difficult because it is no longer a monster when it's in the pendulum zone. It is a spell trap. So it says you can pay 900 LP, so he's going to pay his life points for a cost. Reveal 3 Enneacraft cards from your deck. Your opponent randomly picks one for you to add to your hand. Shuffle the rest into the deck. This you can only use once per turn. So he is going to get his 3 cards. He gets a reset, a release, and an Enneapolis. The Enneapolis, I have since learned, is it's the main like win condition, I guess I would say, because it is going to allow you to burn. So the way that this deck works, from what I have pieced together, is the Enneapolis does burn damage, and when you build up counters. So your basic burning means that your opponent is going to be losing life points for doing things like, in this case, sending monsters from field to grave, and then you burn them through. So he does these 3. We put him face down, roll a dice. I tell him the one he gets to keep. He's going to set 2 more mysterious cards. Activate Enneapolis. Okay, so here's where I can go ahead and read it to you. It says, once per turn during the end phase, remove all EC counters from your field. And if you do, your opponent takes 900 damage for each. So the Orgia, let me back it up. The Orgia is how you get the counters. Each time a monster is flipped face up, place 1 EC counter on this card. So through the pendulum effects, you get to do the counters, and then Enneapolis, you will then burn the counters. Okay, so he goes ahead and he activates, reveals to set, and then it is my turn. It seems like we're doing a great job so far. Just wait. Okay, so at the start of my turn, I am going to go ahead and set a trap card. I'll let you know right now, I am setting TB11. If you are playing Maliss, I think it's really important to set your trap cards before you do anything because it is a way to do interruption. It is going to come up in this point. I then normal summon March Hare. On the normal summon of March Hare, he does chain 1 Sol and Luna. Okay, so chain 1 Sol and Luna. This says target 1 monster you control and 1 monster your opponent controls. Apply the following effects of each monster. So basically, if you target it face up, it goes face down. If you target it face down, it goes face up, right? So he's targeting my March Hare to place it face down. Face down monsters can only be used for like tributing and I believe cost. Basically, face down monsters, I can't link into them. This is a link claiming deck. If it goes face down, I'm kind of out of luck. So chain 1 Sol and Luna, he's going to target one of his face downs, flip face up. Enneacraft monsters have flip effects. So when they're flipped face up, he's going to get to do more stuff. So he targets my Hare, and he targets one of his face downs. I am then going to chain 2 TB11. So you can activate this card the turn it was set by banishing 1 face-up Maliss monster. So I'm dodging basically. So I'm going to go ahead and banish my March Hare, and then I get to special summon 1 Maliss monster from my deck, but that Maliss monster cannot activate its effects. So we are now going to resolve the chain. So off of TB11, I am going to summon a Dormouse. And then here was our first illegal play. Sol and Luna should have resolved as much as possible. So despite no longer having the hair that was targeted to flip face down, he should have flipped face up one of his monsters, and then that would have continued more things. It would have been in his benefit to do this. But Sol and Luna ended up not resolving at all. It should have, though. So the thing with most cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! I hate saying things like all because the game is confusing, but you want to resolve as much as possible. And the wording on this card does allow that to happen. So just because the March hair doesn't go face down does not mean that his shouldn't have gone face up. So we resolved the chain backwards. Sol and Luna should have resolved as much as possible, but it didn't. On a new chain, I am going to pay 300 life points as cost in order to add a Maliss monster back from banishment. March hair is my only choice to do that. I am then going to use the Dormouse to link into Lingribo. So here's the thing. TB11 says that monster can't activate its effects. If that copy leaves the field and comes back, I can then do Dormouse later. So that's like my big brain plan, right? So I'm going to link into Lingribo. The reason I do this is because I am then going to activate as chain 1 Baldrake, targeting the Dormouse to banish, right? So my plan is chain 1 Baldrake. I'm going to target the Dormouse. It is not cost, though, so it does have to resolve. It's going to allow me to summon the Baldrake. Once the Dormouse is banished, I get to get it back, right? So I target the Dormouse. Chain 2 Orgia. So this has a flip effect of destroy one monster your opponent controls. Flip effects happen on a new chain. So it says, when your opponent activates a monster effect in the hand, quick effect, you can change this face down card to face up defense position, add one Enneacraft card from your deck to your hand. So I am chain 1, activating Baldrake in hand. This now meets the trigger. So the thing about the Enneacraft cards is they're whens. I know I said a whole thing if I didn't want to talk about whens, but if you're playing Enneacraft, you're going to have to understand whens. So when means it has to be the exact next thing. So it is responding to the fact that I activated the Baldrake in hand, and it's going to allow it to flip face up and search. So he flips it face up, and now we're going to resolve backwards. So chain 2. Oh, there's Alphonse. He's going to search. He goes ahead and searches the whale. And then Baldrake will resolve, meaning that now I banish the Dormouse and Baldrake is summoned. On a new chain, Dormouse to pay 300 to summon back. Chain 2 is the flip effect. So as turn player, I am chain 1. So chain 1, Dormouse, pay 300 to attempt to summon itself back. Chain 2 is going to be the Orgia, which is the flip effect to destroy. And here's where I make another mistake. So Enneapolis is a when a monster is flip face up. But this would also happen on a new chain. So it should have occurred on this chain because this is when it's met its timing. So Enneapolis should have been chain 3. I think it also could have been chain 2. Basically, Enneapolis has an effect of when a monster is flipped face up. You get to either set to the scale or add back a pendulum monster. We end up doing it on a later chain, which was inaccurate. So this chain is going to resolve. Dormouse is going to come back. I am now going to chain 1 ignition effect Dormouse in order to banish a card. And then here is where the Enneapolis gets chained. And again, this is illegal because let me give you the exact wording of this. It's not a when, it's an if. If an Enneacraft pendulum monster you control is flipped face up during the main phase, you can choose one of them and either return it to the hand or place it to your pendulum zone. So it's important that it's an if because it wasn't a mistiming of when having to be on the next chain, but the trigger was met. So when the trigger is met, and because it's not a quick effect, this isn't a quick effect that you can just do whenever once the trigger has been met. The trigger was met, so it should have been on the previous chain. Legally, he cannot chain this to Dormouse because it's not a quick effect. So it missed its timing. When making this edit, there were so many times where I looked over at my boyfriend and I was like, my brain hurts. And he was like, why didn't you read the cards? And I was like, I know I should have read the cards because then we would have caught a lot of the illegal stuff that happened. But in the moment, you live and learn. You live and learn. So it's going to resolve backwards. He's going to set the Orgia and then chain 1 is going to resolve. I'm going to banish the White Rabbit. On a new chain, White Rabbit has met its trigger effect of if this card is banished, I'm going to pay 300 to summon it back. It has an on summon effect, so that resolves. So now on a new chain, White Rabbit on summon effect to set. I'm going to set an MTP. I am now going to link summon into Cyber's Wicked. and I get Daruma Karma Cannon. Okay, so this is something that I learned actually during this game. So this card says change as many monsters on the field as possible to face down defense position. Then if either player controls a face up monster, they must send all face up monsters they control. This gets around towers. This gets around untargetable things because, so I don't have a response to it. So the Baldric will go face down, but link monsters can't go face down. So let's say you have a link monster that's untargetable. It's not being targeted to go to graveyard. I, as the player, have to send that card to graveyard because link monsters can't go face down. So this was a really smart play on his part because Wicked is a way that I get into a banish and search. So then Baldric's going to go face down. Wicked will go to the graveyard. I was watching this back and I'm like, man, Maliss has a lot of ways to a lot of ways to keep going. I'm going to go ahead and activate Allure, which says draw 2 cards, then banish 1 dark monster from your hand, or if you don't have any in your hand, you have to send your entire hand to the graveyard. There was no response, so I draw my 2, and I go ahead and I banish the March Hare, which means I didn't draw anything that I wanted to actually banish to bring back. Honestly, I'm trying to get into a Chessie. That's the only one I haven't yet. So then I go ahead and Gold Sark, which says banish 1 card from your deck face up. The second part doesn't matter for Maliss because the whole point is they have a trigger effect when they're banished in order to resummon themselves. So I go ahead and I banish the Cheesy Kia. This has now met its trigger, so I'm going to pay 300 life points. I'm going to go ahead and special summon. So chain 1, trigger to resummon, and then I do on a new chain the ignition effect. So every time you activate a card, you are starting a chain. So chain 1 was to resummon itself, and then now on a new chain, I am activating the ignition effect to draw and then banish. There was no response to this, so I am going, banish then draw. So it's not cost to banish, but I banish the Maliss in the Mirror. The reason for this is Maliss in the Mirror has a trigger effect that is going to allow me to banish another Maliss card from grave in order to search one of the same type. So if I banish a monster, search a monster. So I go ahead and get my cheesy draws, and then on a new chain, I activate Maliss in the Mirror. I banish a monster in order to search a monster, and I search the Hare. I have actually not used Hare effect, which says during the main phase, if this card is in your hand, quick effect. You can banish 1 other Maliss card from your hand or graveyard, and if you do, special summon this card. If you remember, at the start of the turn, I normal summoned. So we're going to go ahead and activate Hare effect and banish. Oh, hi, Alphonse. We're going to banish the Dormouse, the White Rabbit, and then we're going to summon the Hare. You have to remember, I've drawn 4 cards at this point, right? 1 Allure and 1 Chessie. I ended up drawing into another Allure. This is not once per turn. So I am going to go ahead and Allure again, draw 2, and banish another Hare. At this point, I'm going to link into Link Disciple. The reason I link into Link Disciple is because I'm going to go into Espy. And Espy has an effect that if this card is Link Summon using a Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link Monster as material, you can target 1 card in the field or either graveyard and banish it. So I went into Link Disciple, so that way I could get the effect, and I am going to target the Orgia that is in the Pendulum Zone. This is going to now cause his Enneacraft monster to trigger because I have targeted. So chain 1, the SP to target. Chain 2, the Scorpion. The Scorpion says when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a card you control, so SP is targeting. Quick effect, you can change this face down card into face up defense position and negate that effect. Then you can banish face down 1 random card from your opponent's hand. So we are going to go ahead and resolve the chain. So he negates SP and he banishes a random card face down from my hand. So technically SP still resolves, she just resolves negated. I'm going to go ahead and set a card and then pass. So he is going to activate Enneapolis in order to return Pendulum monsters to his hand. If you remember, the reason to do this is the cards like Orgia, which is going to allow him to reveal to set face down. Orgia, which is going to allow him to reveal and face down. Oh my gosh, Orgia, which is going to, that should be once per turn. Konami, if you're listening. What the fuck? Why? Okay, so anyway, he's just going to Orgia 3 times, and he's going to get 3 face down monsters, and then he's going to place Orgia into the Pendulum Zone. He's going to pay his life points. He's going to reveal 3 cards. I am going to pick one randomly. He's going to get the Scorpion, the Release, and I believe, yeah, the Leon, one of the other ones. He gets one of them. He likes to call this cup and ball gambling. Just figure out what's so we pick a random one for him to add to hand. He goes ahead and activates Pixia. Pixia has the same effect as Orgia, which means you can reveal it in your hand, and then you can special summon one monster from your hand in face down position. So he can actually reveal the Pixia in order to special summon face down the Pixia, which is what he's going to do. And then he passes. So this is why playing Enneacraft was so brain hurty for me, because everything's face down and it's flip effects. And I never played in an era. I've been playing for a year. We're coming up on a year. I never played in an era of flip effects. So I was like, what do I even like? How do you even stop this? We figure it out later, but we're about to make like a huge misplay. So buckle up, folks. It's about to get bad. Okay, on my turn, I'm going to activate Maliss and Underground. A little interesting rulings fact is that spell cards, like field spell cards that say when this card is activated, you are doing the effect immediately on activation versus other ones where you activate it by placing it and then you activate the effects. This is why if Maliss and Underground is, let's say, ghost spelled, which negates the activation, it gets destroyed versus, you know, let's say Mignon gets ghost spelled, then Mignon is not destroyed because Mignon has an activation, meaning you place it and then it has an activation of actually using the effect. Anyway, Maliss and Underground is a unique one in that it says when this card is activated. So I'm going to activate Maliss and Underground, and I am going to go ahead and banish a White Rabbit. That does a trigger effect, pay 300, resummon, no effect, because I have no legal targets. So White Rabbit has the on-summon effect to set a trap from deck. I've already gone through both of them. I thought this was funny because when I was watching this back, I was terrified to flip my Baldrake up because I had pieced together that there was triggers when stuff is flipped face up. So I'm like, do I flip it? Do I flip it? No, I'm not going to flip it. And he was admittedly like, come on, just do it. And I was like, no, because I know you're trying to do. This game gave me like, I got scared. Like by the end of it, I was so scared to do anything because I kept triggering his monsters and my brain was not braining to figure out there's only so many Enneacraft monsters. I've since learned, like once you figure out what they do, you can try to play around it. But this is my first time ever playing against it. I'm going to link into Red Ransom. Red Ransom has an on-summon effect to search a spell, Maliss spell or trap. I am going to search another Maliss and Underground. It is once per turn though. I will now activate MTP in order to add a Maliss monster from deck to hand. And because I control a Maliss Link monster, I can banish one card on field, non-targeting. That is extremely important because if I target, I'm going to activate one of his face down Enneacraft monsters. So I'm going to go ahead and add a GC Kit. And then I am going to non-target get rid of the Orgia. I'm going to do another Allure. I play 10 in my deck, so it makes sense. I'm kidding. I play 3. I play 3. It's a joke. I'm going to do another Allure in order to draw 2 and then banish. Got to remember I have the Chessie in cat, which was the Chessie in cat. The Chessie in hand, which was the plan. So I draw 2, banish the Chessie. Chessie now has its trigger effect that if it is banished, I can pay the cost of 300 and special summon it. So I go ahead and I special summon it. Backup Ad Ignister says if you control a Cyberse monster that was special summoned from the extra deck, you can special summon this card from your hand. So notice that it is activating. It is not an inherent summon. It is activating in hand because I control the Red Ransom, which is a Cyberse that was special summoned from the extra deck. I am activating this card. If it was an inherent summon, meaning that if it did not activate, that'd be way better. Unfortunately, this does activate in hand in order to special summon itself. That goes through. Didn't trigger anything, or at least he did not choose to flip anything face up. It then has an on-summon effect to search and then discard. So I am going to search the wizard and I am going to discard my Rarity 5 Ghost Spell. Look, I have since ordered 2 more. I think I ordered them, or was I window shopping? I need 2 more Ghost Spell Starlights with the stamp on them. I want OG Ghost Spell Starlights, but they're expensive. So anyway, I search the wizard. I discard the ghost spell. Okay. I need to, well, what you are about to witness, ladies and gentlemen, is the longest illegal chain to occur. The moral of this very sordid tale that you're about to witness is that reading your cards is really important. It's really important. You're going to think it can't get worse, and then it's going to get worse. So we're just going to do it. Okay. So I go into Access Code Talker. I target the Red Ransom for the attack gain, and then there's no response. So then I activate to banish a card, and pop. So let me go ahead and just read you Access Code Talker so you can understand the shenanigans that are about to occur it really should not have occurred. The literal very first line of Access Code Talker says your opponent cannot activate cards or effects in response to this card's effect activations. So there's two effects of Access Code. There is the if this card is link summoned, you can target one link monster that was using material for the attack gain times 1,000. So it's going to get 3,000 attack because I targeted Red Ransom, which is a link 3. There's room for response in between. My excuse for what's about to happen is that normally in between those two things, because you can't respond to the if this card is link summoned, that is a trigger like effect that as turn player I'm going to get to do, and because it says you can't respond, in between is normally when someone will, let's say, imperm, right? Because you can't respond, but you can preemptively negate. So there's no response, and so then I decide to do the other effect that says you can banish one link monster from your field or graveyard. That is cost. I totally forget to pay cost. I sort that out later. Destroy one card your opponent controls. Also, for the rest of this turn, you cannot banish monsters with the same attribute. So I say, okay, I'm going to banish to destroy. Response? There was a response. There shouldn't have been a response. It's illegal for there to be a response. He's going to go ahead and chain 2 the tail because I am attempting to destroy a card. I chain 3 imperm on the tail. And now that I'm targeting a card, he's going to chain 4 the Pixia because I'm targeting. And then I'm going to chain 5 the Druis Worm, and I'm activating it in hand. And because I'm activating a card in hand, yeah, he's going to go ahead and he's going to chain 6 the Leon. So none of this should have happened because he shouldn't have been able to respond. But we get up to a chain 6 of illegal plays. We do resolve it backwards. And I do end up noticing later on that we made a big mistake. So normally what happens is if you catch that, so Yu-Gi-Oh wants to have a legal game state. So you fix it as much as possible. Plays end up occurring after this before I noticed, so it was impossible to go back to a legal game state. This was also, we were playing at a party. It's casual. It's like 11 o'clock at night. We were not trying to go back to a legal game state, but we should have. It's on both players to keep a legal game state, so this was wildly. So at the end of all of that resolving, which I'm not going to walk you through because it's confusing and illegal. At the end of all of that resolving, I have Red Ransom in banishment. I have Hair in banishment, which means that they both trigger. So Red Ransom, pay 900 to summon itself back. March Hair, pay 300 to add a Maliss card from banishment to hand. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And I'm going to add back the Dormouse off of the Hair, and then Red Ransom is going to special itself. And then as part of its like resummoning itself, it banishes a Maliss card from deck. So I'm going to banish the Jessie. And here's where, because I was thinking, oh wait, the access code ended up getting bounced back to hand. When you try to bounce back an extra deck monster to hand, it goes back to the extra deck. And I realized, you could see how I'm like, read the card. It's literally the first line. It's the first. So we have a conversation and it's like, we're too far gone, y'all. We're too far gone. We can't go back to a legal game state. So we just end up continuing with the game. Also at this point, like I really cut this down. Like I say, this was in real life, IRL. This was 50 minutes. This was almost a 50-minute game. The amount of reading, it really was the amount of reading of, I just didn't understand Enneacraft. I was confused about what was happening. He's been playing Enneacraft on, I believe, Master Duel, but then like sitting down and playing in person. There's just like a lot of other things. There's also a party. Alphonse came. People would come in and talk to us. So I go ahead and I normal Dormouse, and I don't do the effect because at this point I'm running out of stuff. I do the Wizard effect. So Wizard effect says that if I control, did I just cheat? No, I'm good. I have Red Ransom. Because Wizard effect is similar to Backup Adagnister. So it says if you control a cyber sponsor that was special summoned from the extra deck, I do have Red Ransom. but she wasn't special summoned from the extra deck. She was special summoned from banishment. Does that still count? Y'all gotta realize too, by this point in the game, even if I did cheat, we're so far gone in this game ever having any type of illegal game state. If you control a Cyberse monster that was special summoned from the extra deck, let me know if it still counts if she comes back from banishment. Like if she came from extra deck, then went to banishment, then came back. Let me know if that's legal. You can target one dark Cyberse monster in your graveyard, and you special summon both of them in defense position. So I am going to special summon the wizard and the hare in defense position. I then go into Cryptor. Cryptor is going to allow me to non-target banish one of my opponent's cards. This is a quick effect, meaning that summoning does not start a chain, but as turn player, if I have any trigger effects or like quick effects, like I get to be chain 1. So I, as chain 1, can activate the quick effect to target one of my banished Maliss monsters in order to non-target banish one of my opponent's cards. So we're going to go ahead and do that. And then I'm going to get rid of the face down one because I'm scared and I just don't want to accidentally trigger it. And here's where I found the out. If I've since played Lance, again, playing Enneacraft, but I'm trying to learn K9 for hire. That's a whole other video that we'll get into. The out for Maliss, I think, is Mr. Firewall Dragon, Dark Fluid, Neo Tempest Terahertz III. Because it says negate any monster effects activated by your opponent during the battle phase, because they all have flip effects. But when I attack and he flips them face up, Firewall is going to let me negate them. Also, you can attack, this card can attack monsters a number of times each battle phase up to the number of different attributes it has. It has a quick effect that you can send a Cyberse monster from deck to grave, and so you send different attributes and it's going to give an attack boost first of all and allow it to keep attacking. So at this point I didn't realize how like necessarily smart this was, because I send the D-Save Worm and at this point I just attack over. They're already flipped up, so I attack twice because it has 2 attributes. Oh wait, I lied, actually, sorry, I ended up not sending the D-Save Worm. You can see it in my graveyard. I send the Almirage, and the reason I send the Almirage is because D-Save Worm is dark, so it wouldn't be able to attack twice. I send the Almirage, which is fire, so it can attack. It attacked twice, beat over the monsters, and then pass turn. At this point, even in the editing process, y'all, I was like, we had messed up so bad, and Firewall is going to be the out. So I'm just going to let this play. You can see what is occurring. I will say one of the hardest parts about playing against a deck that you do not know is just how, oh, look at Alphonse. He comes and visits. He likes to play Yu-Gi-Oh! There's so much unintentional cheating that occurs playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And I have said how I am not a fan, allegedly, of things like, oh, I send the transcode so we can attack 3 times. Wait, here's what we figured out. I'm gonna read the card. And then our friend Leo's in the room, and I was like, Leo, it works the way I think it does, right? And Leo's like, yeah. And then Lance is like, what do I do? And so at this point, I'm gonna end up winning. Anyway, what I was saying is, when you are playing against a deck that you are not familiar with, the amount of reading that occurs, and to really be mindful of what you're reading and what is legal and what is illegal. And it is on both players to keep a legal game state. But especially when you're learning a deck, you know, you don't always know what's happening. And with online simulators, my whole thing was like, oh, it doesn't let you do illegal things, which I think, again, in this instance, you know, he'd been playing Enneacraft on Master Duel, which is really super helped him learn. And there was a lot of times that he was like, no, I know this works because in Master Duel, let me do it. And that is something people have brought up in the comments of that. With Master Duel, a side effect of it not letting you do illegal plays is, let's say you activate a card to pop, but the opponent doesn't have legal targets, and you end up having to pop your own. There's no takesy-backsies on Master Duel, so you learn really fast. So while I feel less about online, sim, I see a little more merit in the online simulators now because of how it does let you know, like, oh, the fact like Orgia not being once per turn, Master Duel was the way that he was like, no, I know that this is legal because Master Duel lets me do it all the time. But on the flip side, there was like illegal plays that I think if you're playing in person Yu-Gi-Oh, it's just going to happen. That was definitely confusing. I've since played Enneacraft 2 more times, and my brain definitely hurts. But hopefully that was like a learning lesson. I tried to include stuff about the chains. We talk about it resolving backwards. And also to realize that I think even if you are learning and if you have it in your brain that like, oh, like I'm such a bad player because I make mistakes or I make illegal plays, like it's so common. Y'all, it's so common. My boyfriend's been playing for like a really long time, knows so many rulings, probably like the most knowledgeable person I know about the game. Um, Still, there was like the transcode talker lock that neither of us knew. It just really is about reading the cards. And I think if you're going to try to play more competitively, more seriously, if you don't want to be making these types of mistakes, it requires research. I think that's why Yu-Gi-Oh is like a hard game because, or one of the harder, I would kind of say the hardest TCG because you have to do, I've played other TCGs, Magic, Pokemon, and you sit down and you can kind of figure out what your opponent's deck is doing, right? Yu-Gi-Oh is something that before you sit down, you kind of gotta know what you might be playing against in order to ensure that everyone's keeping a legal game state. Anyway, that was Enneacraft. Alphonse has since left. There's no baby today, but you got to see the baby in the past. I heard him. Alphonse, come here. He might come say hi to all of you. So now I'm gonna go and let my head stop hurting from the headache that was that Enneacraft game. Alphonse doesn't like Enneacraft. He's afraid of spaceships because of that incident with the aliens. Okay. Well, we'll see you next time. Bye.